I literally said, you have to be willing to lose your job as a police officer to stand up and be on the side of right.
You know, as a police officer, I'm compelled to make this video. I've been in law enforcement for 10 years.
I've been directed to tell you got to pull that video down. I said, what are you talking about? I think he said like over 500,000 views. And I was told that you have to pull the plug on this thing. The Black Plague was coming, right? I enjoyed the department and I liked the people that I worked for. But once all the COVID stuff kicked off, I knew I needed to take a stand, but I didn't know that taking that stand would resonate with so many Americans. It got to the point where it's like a lot of people start to come to the conclusion. It's like, why are we doing this?
Yeah.
Why am I waking up and putting on the vest and hitting the streets and doing the job when nobody really cares about it anymore?
Welcome to Mic Drop, the podcast where relevancy is irrelevant and we don't give a shit about your feelings.
It was about halfway through the deployment, and the younger guys listening won't even know what this is, but do you remember Yahoo Messenger on your laptop?
Yeah.
I got a little ding, a little notification popped up, and it was a positive pregnancy test from my wife.
Oh, no shit. So you're like fucking game changer.
And I said, well, that's weird because I've been deployed for 10 months. Like, no.
So we need to talk.
Yeah, so we need to talk.
Yeah.
No, so she said to me, she goes, and man, she was a rock star. She was with me for lots of deployments. Yeah. And she goes, it's time to if we're going to do a family, it's time to put this behind us.
Yeah.
And man, I couldn't argue with that because the truth is a lot of my guys on my teams had families and kids and wives back home, and it always kind of fucked with them. Mm-hmm. I mean, I saw a lot of fucked up dynamics, guys worried about home life. And I was lucky enough, like I never even thought about home while I was deployed. And when I started dating her, she was the chick that was like, no drama. When I was deployed, we're not fucking calling every night. I'm not talking to you. We'll send some emails back and forth. She held the home front down. And when I'm deployed, I'm deployed. And I actually think that's probably a good way to operate. I wouldn't want to be deployed in today's world where you pick up your fucking phone and you get on Instagram. You see what everybody's doing. You see what your ex-girlfriend's doing. You see who's fucking who. And it's like...
Is that what you look at on Instagram?
Yeah. But just all the drama that's attached to social media, you don't want that on the battlefield.
Yeah, well, that and just the connectivity, the distraction, like, agreed. Like, you know, I had one sat phone call home. One.
Yep, that's what we had too.
You know,
and I forget what it was, but I think it was 5 minutes a month.
Yeah, it was like an occasional email and one fucking phone call for maybe 5 minutes.
And that's why I didn't take it.
Yeah.
When we were in Afghanistan with the regiment, I wouldn't take my 5-minute monthly call because I already knew what that phone call would be like.
Yeah.
Because, dude, 5 minutes is starting and over before you know it, and it's going to be some awkward, okay, I got to go.
Yeah. Nope. Yeah, and it's more of a distraction. I can't even imagine being, especially like with FaceTime and like, it would be such a distraction to where, I think it'd be counterproductive, you know. But
and so, that ended up being my last deployment. I got home and she expressed the same concerns about like, I know you make good money, but it's not conducive to a healthy family. Yeah. And that's when a guy on my jiu-jitsu team was a U.S. Marshal. He goes, dude, join the U.S. Marshals then. Yeah. I was like, done. Let's do this.
All right, hey guys, I want to take a second to talk about ads. And this is not an ad. This is me talking about the ads. I know that, sometimes we get comments of people bitching about the ads. There's too many ads or they're too long or what have you. And I want to clear two things up, which is number one is that our team's ability to bring you guests and bring them in and the accommodations and the entire process that it takes to produce these shows to the level with which we do requires funding, and the sponsors give us an ability to bring these shows to you. So while I understand that everybody wants zero ads and everything bunched together and what have you, this is how we bring this show to you. We're a very small team. We're very fortunate to be able to do it. But we do still have to pay bills and bring that to you. So keep that in mind. That's the first point. And the second point is that I can assure you with 100% accuracy is that there is not a sponsor or a product that I talk about on here that isn't something that I use. Okay. That I either regularly use or always use or have used. And I refuse to budge on that. Okay. So we get offers for sponsors regularly that get turned down because it's not stuff that I use or would use. So keep that in mind. Have a little bit of flexibility in terms of our ads and realize that they're products that I believe in, that I stand behind, and they're what make this show possible. So if you support these advertisers, these sponsors, that is supporting the show. Thank you. What are the two key components for canine success? That's effective training and proper nutrition. Fueled by Team Dog brings those two components to your family and best friend. The perfect nutritional balance that results in a higher mental acuity, energy, overall vitality, and even an improved appearance. Every product you will find in my company's store was born from the battlefield and not from the boardroom. Let my life's work help you become your dog's hero. So did you go through the FLETC in Georgia?
Yep, Glencoe, Georgia.
Yeah.
Yep.
How was that?
Fucking shit show, bro.
Yeah. This is what, 6 months?
I think it's 6 months. Yeah. 5.5, 6 months, something about that.
Like, keeping it on the positive note, like, what was one thing that you learned there?
So no, I'll tell you. So the when you get hired by the U.S. Marshals, you go to 2 different programs down there at Glencoe. One's called CITP. It's the Criminal Investigator Training Program that most federal agencies send their guys through. I think it's DEA and FBI run their own CITP. Everybody else, and there's a lot of federal agencies that people have never heard of too.
Yeah.
Their guys go through CITP at Glencoe. Once you graduate that, then you go into the specific U.S. Marshals follow-on academy. And
so that's how most of it is, right? There's kind of the basic and then whatever.
Yep, and then each specific agency has their own follow-on. And to tell you the truth, the U.S. Marshals mission is cool, and parts of it are cool, I should say. And I worked for a lot of good people, and I worked in a lot of the cadre who were cool guys. There was a lot of the agency that I really liked, but the thing that kept just plaguing the agency as a whole is there's no enforcement of standards. And coming from special operations, like how many runs can you fall out of in a SEAL team before we have a problem now?
One. The first one, we're going to have a fucking problem.
And so, man, I got down there and we did our initial PT tests, and a big percentage of the people failed the PT tests.
Wow.
And I was like, instantly, like, what the fuck, dude? Like, this is a PT test that you should be able to do drunk, you know?
Yeah. In fact, from now on.
And, everybody that failed the PT tests, everybody that fell out of the runs, they got the title of deputy at the same time as I did.
Wow.
And I remember thinking like, man, this is very different than what I'm used to.
Yeah.
And, most agencies are filled with good people, but it only takes like a couple flaws in leadership at the people at the top to make the whole thing start to fucking operate in a flawed manner. And that was my experience with the U.S. Marshals.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Going just a couple steps back, you mentioned there's a lot of agencies that nobody knows of. Is there one you can mention that most people don't know exists?
No. It's nothing cool.
Well, even lame.
Like the Forest Service has criminal investigators.
Yeah.
The post office has criminal investigators.
Yeah. So they all go through.
They all go through that. Yeah.
Are you lumped in all together in the CITP?
Sometimes they are. It kind of depends on how the hiring process is working. When I went through, the U.S. Marshals had a big enough hiring program to where everybody in our CITP was a marshal.
Okay.
Yep.
Do you know about how many marshals there are that are active at any given time? Ballpark?
I think only like 2,000 or something.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, it's not a big agency.
Yeah.
I might be wrong about that, but I know it's fairly small.
Yeah, that's what she said. Is there a main mission statement for the U.S.?
Yes, and this is the mission statement that most people are unaware of. It's producing prisoners for court.
Really?
That's it.
Like the high level, like
no.
El Chapo.
Well, that's the thing. When people think of federal inmates, they think of like shot callers and all this stuff. It's not really the case. That's a misconception. The only difference between a federal inmate and a local or state inmate is they were charged under a different jurisdiction.
Oh, okay.
So there's literally, as a U.S. Marshal, and this is embarrassing to say, but I've sent out citations to people for illegal campfires.
That's awesome.
Because it's in a federal area, and it's protected federally. And if they get cited by the Forest Service for an illegal campfire, that's a federal crime. Wow. And if they don't show up for court, guess what? Now they have a warrant. So they have a federal misdemeanor warrant for an illegal campfire that comes to my desk as a U.S. Marshal.
I can just imagine that conversation with the cellmates. What are you in for? Man, I started a fucking campfire where I wasn't supposed to. What?
So the truth is the federal misdemeanors, you would try and close those cases all without making arrests. We had the ability to be like, literally call them up and be like, hey bro, and this is why I tell people, like, I'm sure that you don't even fucking remember the getting cited for a campfire from the Forest Service 2 years ago, but because you never paid the fee, now it's the machine just keeps churning. It's like a fucking snowball, and now you have a warrant out for your arrest. Like, what the fuck? Are you serious?
Yeah. You're like, this is a scam.
Yeah. But so every single federal agency, DEA, FBI, ATF, all of their arrests, it doesn't matter what their casework is, every single federal inmate gets remanded to the U.S. Marshal Service. Our agency is who's responsible for every federal inmate.
Okay.
So you get arrested and you get arraigned. That's your initial appearance before a judge. And that's when they say, yeah, I'm not setting bail, and you're going to be remanded to the custody of the U.S. Marshals. Now we own that guy. Every single court proceeding moving forward, we have to go to the jail. We have to get that inmate. We have to search him. We have to chain him up in what they call a 3-piece suit with the chains around the waist, handcuffs, and leg irons, and walk him to their court hearing. And then it doesn't matter if sometimes it's just a plea deal, sometimes it's a trial, sometimes it's a sentencing hearing. And bro, we would have 100 inmates a day.
Did you ever have any guys fight you or try squirrel? Never.
Nope. As a deputy. And here's the thing, and I was in Los Angeles too. So as far as federally, that's considered the Central District of California. Almost all of our inmates were related to RICO and conspiracy charges going after gangs.
Yeah.
So all the kids that were in there were like 18 to 25-year-old gangbangers, tattoos on their face, and they understand how the game is played. And it actually is played in a manner where them doing time is actually almost mandatory for them to progress through the ranks of their gang.
That's wild.
It's crazy. And so they knew how the game was played. And contrary to popular belief, like the gang members that I dealt with, a lot of them are pretty sharp people.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of criminals are.
Yeah.
You know, of course, there's a percentage that's probably not insignificant, you know, that are fucking morons. But
of course.
You know, but the better the criminal, the smarter they are. And you know, I've said this I don't know how many fucking times, like if a lot of these criminals that are brilliant and talented, if they would just put that towards something productive, like they'd be massively successful. Like some of them are fucking brilliant.
So I actually just told the story on my podcast. A lot of times you'll get assigned an inmate for the duration of a trial, or the duration of, in the case of an inmate that I was assigned, he was having shoulder issues and he needed to go to the hospital. And so now it's my responsibility as a deputy to take him and schedule his medical appointments. Again, not cool shit, right? Yeah. It's like I'm sitting in a
babysitting.
Yeah, I'm babysitting a guy while he's getting an MRI, right? But he was in solitary confinement because he was a Mexican mafia shot caller. The Mexican mafia is a prison gang, so they operate inside of prisons. And because he's a shot caller, they keep him in isolation, trying to keep him out of having any control over anything.
How old was he?
I bet he was 35, not super old. Yeah. And so we're on the way to his appointment, and he goes, "Hey, deputy, I've been in solitary confinement for 24 months. He goes, I haven't seen the fucking sun in 24 months. He goes, if it's cool with you, when we step out of the car, before we walk through the doors of the hospital, could I get just 10 seconds of just looking up at the sun?" And, you know, some deputies would be like, "That's a ploy to try, well, we're going to get attacked." Absolutely not, you know? But I try and always say I operate in the realm of probability, not the realm of possibility. And the thing is, if you're cool to these guys, that actually makes my life a lot easier too. Mm-hmm. And I said, yeah, man, I don't have an issue with that. And I let him stand there for like 2 minutes. And from that moment forward, it was like a friendship was forged.
Wow. Did you bullshit with him?
All the time, man.
Oh, shit.
And I remember I told the guy, I was like, man, you went left where I went right at some point in life.
Yeah.
But if we'd taken different paths, I have no doubt that we could be homies, dude.
Yeah. Or in polar opposite spots.
Yeah, right? Yeah. And
that's a trip.
I used to tell some of the deputies, I'm like, in the federal system, they call the inmates mopes. I was like, I get along with the mopes better than most of you motherfuckers.
What is there something you can share in your bullshitting sessions with him that stands out as being the most fascinating that was surprising?
Bro, like one thing that this guy told me all about was like the benefits of Kangen water.
Kangen water.
Drinking Kangen water is a filter that somehow changes the molecular structure and creates a higher pH content. And it's funny because I've just started drinking Kangen water again recently.
So it's a filter you buy?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
And it changes the alkalinity to 9.5. And some people say it's all bullshit, and other people say drinking a higher alkaline water is good for you. I tend to believe that it is, just based on how I feel. And maybe it's a placebo, so you don't need to send me emails saying, that's fucking bullshit.
They still will.
They still will. But yeah, he told me all about this.
Yeah.
And it's like, and he was a huge Megadeth fan.
Really?
He used to sing Megadeth in the back of the car. I'd put Megadeth on for him.
What a fucking
And it's
trip.
like, he was this fucking Hispanic Mexican mafia shot caller that liked
Loves
Megadeth,
Megadeth.
you know?
Dude, what a trip,
and I grew
man.
up a metalhead too, you
Yeah.
know? So it's just little shit like that, man.
Quick derail, best metal concert you've ever been to?
Hands down, Pantera, White Zombie.
Fuck yes.
Yeah, they toured together.
I went to that
and
same concert.
I think it was 99. I think
Yeah.
it was right before I left for the military.
Yeah.
And it was in the Gorge, which is a big outdoor amphitheater in Washington State.
Yeah.
Fucking wild night,
Yeah.
man.
Dude, Pantera Live, I saw him a few times, and yeah, it's fucking incredible.
Dude, I saw Damage Plan on their last tour.
Really?
And that was, the guitar player and the drummer for Pantera. You know what's actually crazy is if I have time tonight, I want to stop. I want to see Dimebag Darrell's grave
Oh, no shit.
because it's 19 minutes outside of Dallas
Yeah.
Airport.
Yeah. Do you play guitar?
I played guitar for a long time growing up. Was in like a little metal band through high school,
man.
you know?
Yeah.
And I've gotten away from playing. It's actually something that it's always in the back of my mind,
Yeah.
but only so many hours in the day.
I'll tell you who else puts on an equally good show to Pantera, or did. I don't know. I think they'd still put on a good show. They're starting a tour right now as Avenged Sevenfold.
Oh, okay.
Dude, I've seen them live a number of times, and they're every bit as good as Pantera live. Like
That's
they're
awesome.
better live than they are in studio.
Yeah.
Just the energy's fucking intense. But
That was my thing as a kid, metal shows,
Yeah.
and I seen them all. The only band that I ever really got into that I haven't seen live yet is Lamb of God.
yeah,
And they put on a wild show too.
yeah, they're I wouldn't say bordering on too heavy, but they're pushing the envelope for sure.
I'll send you some shit.
It'll make you throw up.
Yeah.
All right, so back to being the martial stuff. So there was that guy in particular. What are some other mission sets or responsibilities that marshals have that people wouldn't know about? Or
Dude, like a big thing that you don't think of marshals doing like day-to-day police work, right? But sometimes you do similar day-to-day police work, but it's all a jurisdiction that's held federally. So like you'll serve process, like go knock on people's doors and serve them with a court order or whatever. Or we would do federal evictions. If someone won't leave the house that for whatever reason has a federal housing authority, we can go evict people.
Yeah.
We would do asset forfeiture, where it's like, hey, people haven't paid their loan and it's a federally backed loan. They can use the marshals to go seize and basically what's the word I'm looking at? Repossess stuff.
Oh, shit.
Dude, I repossessed a fucking yacht.
really?
Yeah. And so a funny story. And that's the thing. There are that was a fun day. That was a cool story. And I think if the Marshal Service ran a little differently, it could be a cool career, but for me, the bullshit outweighed the fun stuff.
Yeah.
But like we got notified, and someone had defaulted on a loan on a yacht, and I forget all the details, but they were basically on the run, and they were going to try and get out into international waters with this yacht, and then they no one has authority to repossess the vessel. And so we got a call and said, hey, this yacht is going south. It's off the coast of California, and they're trying to get out into international waters. So we called the Coast Guard and said, hey, can we intersect this yacht? And they looked at like where it was going and where it was at, and they said, yeah, absolutely. I think they call them cutters, one of the little Coast Guard boats.
Yeah.
And said, yeah, we can run you guys out there. And so we fucking went out there and fucking seized a yacht.
Yeah.
And it was funny too, because this super rich guy had a crew that ran his yacht, and they didn't know what was happening behind the scenes. And the captain goes, yeah, this was weird. Like the owner just basically called us and said, get the yacht and take it here right now. He goes, I knew something was up, because I've been this guy's captain for years. And so he calls the guy and he goes, hey, the U.S. Marshals are on your boat. They say they're repossessing it. And he goes, refuse to give up the boat and keep driving it where I told you to drive it. And we could hear him. He's on speaker, right? I said, yeah, that's gonna end with you in federal custody too. Trust me, bro. Like, and he goes, yeah, I ain't doing that shit. Yeah. And so, yeah, we took that boat back, and then I don't remember how it played out, but whoever was the loan holder or whatever, who actually owned the boat, said, hey, thanks for getting that boat. If your kids want to come and play on it sometime, like,
oh shit,
feel free. I said, bro, I got a bunch of little kids that would love to run around on a yacht.
Yeah.
So if you're being serious,
I'm
going to take you up on that. If you're not, it's all good. Yeah. He goes, no, I'm serious. And I drove my kids up that weekend,
way.
And they ran around that yacht for a few hours just while it was docked in the harbor. But to a kid sitting in the captain's chair, it was cool.
Is there any, is that frowned upon? Like, could you get in trouble for doing that?
That's one thing that I really liked about the feds is they didn't seem to put like much of an emphasis on little things like bullshit things like that.
Yeah, because like the military is fucking horrible about
exactly.
Shit like that.
And locally too.
Yeah,
like there's a lot more red tape when you do shit like that. Like I remember the first arrest I made as a local police officer. I pulled out a little bag of meth, and I was just like gonna stomp it out on the concrete. And the guy that was shadowing me as my FTO was like, oh, absolutely not. That has to be booked into evidence, and then you have to put that in for destruction, and you also have to test it to confirm that it's methamphetamine and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, what the fuck, dude? Like, it's such a small amount that nobody's going to get prosecuted for it. It doesn't matter if they're going to get prosecuted or not. It's chain of custody, and that's protocol. And it's like, okay.
Christ, boys.
Because, bro, as a deputy, drugs just go in they just go in the ditch.
Yeah.
Because, dude, if no one's going to prosecute for it, what's the point of a big paper trail?
As a marshal, you're saying?
Yeah, as a marshal. Yeah. I mean, I'd come home. There's plenty of times I'd come home and pull meth out of my cargo pockets.
No shit.
I'm in my house in my own bathroom. I'm like, oh fuck, I haven't thrown this out yet.
Let me do a bump real quick.
Bro, I'll tell you, in full transparency, I told you nothing's off limits. There's times when I was looking at this in my own bathroom, I'm like, man, people ruin their lives for this. It has to be pretty good.
Yeah.
I wonder what this is like.
Yeah.
But nope, I never partook.
God, that's crazy, man.
Fortunately. Otherwise, I'd probably be in a fucking tent somewhere in Los Angeles.
Yeah. Fucking trap house. So it sounds like, at least within the U.S. Marshals, like the level of discretion is pretty signiant. Like you have a lot of leeway as to whether or not you can be a dick or not.
Yep.
Which, it's really that way with local too. It's just it sounds like from your experience there was less of it used.
Yeah. Well, and then the other thing, and the Port of Seattle, the local police department that I worked for, it was a good department, and I liked the people I worked for. But the reality of the port is that they are a smaller department that doesn't deal with very much big crime.
Yeah.
Like a lot of police officers seek going to the port later in their career because it's a slower op tempo.
Yeah.
The port is not a good place if you're 22 years old and you want to run and gun and fight crime.
It's the Twilight Tour.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. You know, and but because it's slower and there's not as much going on, they expect more out of you when it comes to like the attention to detail with the little shit.
Yeah.
Like for instance, one thing that the Port of Seattle would say is like every warrant you come across, you make that arrest. Because there's so many bullshit warrants out there and the jails are just going to kick them anyways. But because our op tempo is slow enough to allow us to do that, if you stop a guy and he has a warrant, you're making that arrest.
Yeah.
Where a lot of times bigger departments, they don't have the capacity or the manpower to arrest a guy and book him in jail and do all that over some small bullshit charge that's just going to get thrown out anyways.
Yeah. So taking a couple steps back, before you went to Port of Seattle, so you did the Marshals for about 5 years. Was it was the frustration with I mean, what made you decide?
No, so, and I'll tell you that I mean, if things had played out a little differently, I'd probably still be a deputy to this day. I was very disgruntled with my leadership in Southern California, but it was more just a conflict with a couple men. Whereas in the Marshal Service, there's 94 different districts, and everybody will tell you each district is like its own agency because it is ran really based on how the chief likes to run his district. And so there's buddies that I'm friends with to this day that still love the Marshal Service
because they're in a good district.
And then you got, typically the rule of thumb is the bigger the district, the more fucked up it becomes. And the mega offices like Los Angeles, Washington, D.C., New York, where you have hundreds of deputies on top of each other, that's usually where it starts to become kind of a shit show.
All right, guys, as you know, I'm into health and fitness and specifically how nutrition relates to it. Coffee has been a staple of mine and I think most people's for a long time. As you know, I'm a big proponent of Mudwater, which is a sponsor of this show. They have been for a while now, and we have a great partnership. I love their product. It's a phenomenal alternative to coffee. For me, coffee, there's jitters, there's mold in it. A lot of times it tends to kind of upset my stomach. But Mudwater has adaptogenic mushrooms. There's a fraction of the caffeine that coffee has. There's a little bit, but it's very, very little. And it really leans on mushrooms and the blend of matcha and chai for kind of that sustained energy that continues to go and doesn't crash the way coffee does when it runs out. They use lion's mane for alertness, cordyceps to support physical performance, chaga and reishi to support the immune system, turmeric for soreness, and cinnamon for antioxidants. I really enjoy that first cup of warm liquid in the morning by taking Mudwater instead of coffee, and I'll put just a splash of heavy cream or even some protein powder, some collagen powder, and I also throw usually a couple drops of stevia or monk fruit vanilla to make it kind of a thick, normal morning coffee ritual type of concoction. And I got to tell you, it does wonders for me, and I'm really, really glad that I switched. It's been, a better part of a year now, that I've been taking that and using that as part of my daily morning routine, and it's fantastic. I love it. I can't recommend it enough. It's 100% USDA, organic, non-GMO, gluten-free, vegan, and kosher certified, and they also donate to the Berkeley Center for Science of Psychedelics, which is groundbreaking and leading research to help veterans with PTSD and other associated illnesses and syndromes. So great cause, great company, phenomenal product. If you go to Mudwater, that's mudwtr.com/Mike to support this show and the product, and use the code MikeMud, MIKEMUD, all caps, for 15% off. That's, again, Mudwater, mudwtr.com/Mike, and the code is MikeMud, MIKEMUD, all caps, for 15% off. Go check them out. I got to level with you guys. I shaved my sack. Yeah, I said it. It's Smooth Sack Summer 2023, if you haven't heard already. Make sure that you're scaped from pubes to bum. That's right, this summer. Keep your balls cool while looking hot with Manscaped. They've been a big supporter of the show for a while now, and they're the leaders in below-the-waist grooming. And they're making sure that we all have a ball this summer by giving our pants partners everything they need to stay fresh. Dive headfirst into smooth sack summer by going to manscaped.com for 20% off plus free shipping with our code. The Manscaped Performance Package 4.0 has everything you need to prepare for that summer bod. They've built the ultimate grooming bundle for your summer grooming. The Lawnmower 4.0 trimmer has a cutting-edge ceramic blade to reduce grooming accidents thanks to their advanced skin-safe technology. The Lawnmower 4.0 has a 7,000 RPM motor. That was not an accident. New multi-function on-off switch, and it gives you the ability to turn the 4000K LED spotlight on and off when needed for a more precise shave. This trimmer is also waterproof, so beach, lake, shower, whatever, it will devour even the strongest pubes. Now that you got the perfect haircut, I know I do, use Manscaped's liquid formulations to keep that freshness even at the hottest summer barbecues. Most importantly, use the Crop Preserver Ball Deodorant, which is a real crowd favorite to stay cool in the heat. They're even throwing in 2 gifts for their Performance Package 4.0. That's the Manscaped Boxers and the Shed Travel Bag. And they're also throwing in some Shears 2.0, a nail grooming kit, which is a stainless steel nail cutter, tweezer, and grooming scissors. So if you throw in the code MICDROP, all one word, you get 20% off plus free shipping. Manscaped, I've been using their stuff for years now, even before they sponsored the show. They've been a phenomenal supporter of the Mic Drop podcast, and this deal is amazing. Plus, again, if you use the code Mic Drop, it's 20% off plus free shipping. I don't know how you beat that. So take care of your undercarriage this summer with Manscaped. That's manscaped.com, code Mic Drop, 20% off plus free shipping. Do it. Is requesting transfer difficult?
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's a big part of why I ended up walking away.
Yeah.
So I was told this is a 3-year assignment and then you can move to Seattle when I was hired, right? Now it's kind of like an Army recruiter. They're kind of just telling you what you want to hear. There is no guarantee you'll ever get to transfer anywhere. It's needs of the agency. And so, I put in a request to go to Seattle, which it got denied plenty of times, which is fine, right? I understand how the game is played. The Marshal Service doesn't need to bend over backwards for Greg Anderson. I get that. But then my father ended up falling terminally ill, and his doctor diagnosed him terminal and gave him 6 months to live. And so I went to my chief and I said, hey, part of the reason I put the military and contracting in the rearview mirror is to be closer to be able to support my family. I said, my dad has 6 months to live and I'm down in Los Angeles. What can we do to help me be with my family through this process? Can we do a PCS move? Can we do just like a temporary, like a TDY? And the thing is, the Marshal Service has the ability to do all of these things because I've seen it happen. Like deputies will swap districts for 6 months, shit like that, right? And so come to find out that the agency and even most of the people in my chain of command supported me getting transferred to Seattle. But my chief was like, you're too good of a deputy. I can't lose you. I said, so I'm getting punished for being a good deputy? And he's like, I'm sorry, Greg, like with the manpower that I have right now, blah, 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 I can't lose you. And then I'll even show you the email after the show. I ended up getting an email and it said, if you need to be with your dad during for whatever, the next few months, he can move to Los Angeles.
What the fuck?
Yeah, bro. And I walked in and bro, I always say I'm cool till I'm not cool. And now I want to fight you to the death,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
I walked into my supervisor's office and I said, hey, you see this, sir? I said, I dare any man in this district to say this to my fucking face. So that's an easy email to send. I fucking dare someone to say this to my face. He's like, Greg, calm down. Listen, that was just, that's kind of protocol and blah. I said, it's not protocol. It's insulting. My dad's fucking going to lose his life soon. And I'm trying to work with you guys. And someone said he should move to Los Angeles. He's an old, sick man, and he's fucking dying. And I go, dude, calm down. Please exercise some patience. We're going to work with you. I said that email was the end of my patience. So now we're doing it my way. And I'm going home on Monday to be with my family. And the agency can do whatever the fuck the agency wants to do with me. But that was fucking disrespectful, and I'm putting family first. You guys always preach family first, and then when my family needed you, you insulted them, so fuck you guys. Greg, you're being crazy. Blah, blah, blah. I said, I'm not being crazy. I'm out of here on Monday. And I fucking flew home. So we have the federal pay system. It's called WebTNA, and you log your own hours. Well, because you can log in and you have control over your own paycheck, I put myself on 365 days of leave without pay and just left.
That's a trip.
And bro, my dad lived for 5 weeks.
Oh, wow.
And I was home with him the whole time. Those last 5 weeks, there's supposed to be 6 months. He didn't even make it close to that.
You mind if I ask what ailed him?
Dementia.
Oh, shit.
And like a lot of people don't realize dementia is a progressive debilitating disease where your cognition continuously gets depleted, but you also, the brain actually shrinks and it's actually eating away at brain tissue until it ultimately kills you. And yeah, he only lasted for 5 weeks. But the interesting thing about my dad's dementia was it was affecting a part of his brain that was short-term memory. So like you'd tell him a story and he wouldn't remember anything, right? But if we talked about growing up and our fishing trips in Alaska, he could remember every single last detail. Yeah. So towards the end of his life, when I would share time with him, we would just reminisce about stuff because that part of his brain still functioned, and it was actually pretty cool.
Yeah, that's
you know?
wild.
And so I got a lot of closure with my dad. We already talked about how we really came together and got close later in life. So I wanted to be there for him when he passed. And the way that the agency treated me through that kind of made me realize, like, man, when I need them, they weren't there for me. And now I'm no longer willing to be there for you. Yeah. And bro, for that whole year, the fucking Marshal Services send me emails all the time. Greg, you have to come back to work. I said, no, I'm on a 1 year break.
I'm on a gap year.
You can't do that, Greg. I said, well, I'm doing it. You can't do that. And here's how fucked up the federal government is. Because I had nothing on my file, I had no negative counseling, I didn't have any paper trail. Like, I was a good deputy. I was respected by everybody. They couldn't then fire me. It's like it's the federal government moves like pond water, and in order to fire someone, you have to have like this paper trail that goes back for fucking years. Yeah. And since they didn't have that on me, and so finally after that year went up, I got an email and it's like, hey, since you haven't been to work for a year now, we have everything we need to move forward with termination. So we're going to move forward and your termination date will be effective, blah, blah, blah. And I just wrote back and said, don't bother with that. Consider this my resignation. And people thought that was crazy because the U.S. Marshals is considered like a very prestigious position. It's very hard to get. But I mean, you know how it is. It doesn't matter how prestigious it is, or
right is right.
Right is right. And I felt like I wasn't being treated in the way that I felt that I deserved to be treated. So it's just time to go our separate ways. Yeah. You know?
That's awesome. So during that year, what were you doing financially?
I started at my Jiu Jitsu Academy.
Okay. So I guess taking a one step back, during the time in Los Angeles as a marshal, that's where you put like a hard 5 years in at Electric there, and that's where you really progressed. Yep,
that's where. So when I moved to Los Angeles, I was already a brown belt.
Oh, no shit. Yep. So I mean, can you kind of quickly walk through your jiu-jitsu path that way? Like, where did you train and progress at?
So as soon as I got home, remember I told you getting my ass kicked by the Navy SEALs in Ramadi, that was 2004. As soon as I got home, I joined a local academy, both a Gi Jiu-Jitsu academy that was under the Gracie Baja banner, and then also an MMA gym, like learning full contact fighting. Okay. And I geeked out on it, and I trained 6-7 days a week for the next 5 years. And I went from white belt to brown belt in 5 years. Wow. Which, looking back on it, I think it was too fast. But I became a big fish in a little pond because the Gracie Baja that I was training at didn't have a lot of guys that could push me. And it got to the point where I started thinking that I had this jiu-jitsu thing figured out. Yeah. You know, I was like, I'm a brown belt. I'm doing very well. Like, nobody submits me at my academy anymore. It's like, okay, I think I'm getting this jiu-jitsu thing. Then I moved to California with the Marshal Service. And immediately I realized I don't know shit about jiu-jitsu. It was almost like learning that same lesson with Dallas all over again. And it's because, and for your listeners that follow the sport of jiu-jitsu, man, I looked at my office, which was downtown LA, and then I looked at where my house was, which was in south of Corona, California.
Yeah, I don't know, that's it.
Because I had, making a GS5 wage in LA, you can't raise a family out there. Yeah. So I had to commute 75 miles inland to where I lived. And I was like, what jiu-jitsu academies are along this route? And I found one, Checkmat Corona. I was like, okay, they run a 7 p.m. class. That's late enough for my schedule. I'm going to go check this gym out. That was Marcus Buchecha's gym. Buchecha hadn't won the world title yet. He ended up winning the world title the next year. And then he won it 13 times after that. Yeah. He's the most, he has more world titles than anyone. But when I met him, he was just 22-year-old Marcus running a jiu-jitsu academy in Corona, California. And he fucking molested me in a way that I didn't know another man could.
Yeah, as a brown belt.
As a brown belt.
Yeah. And what's the size disparity between you guys?
At the time, I mean, Marcus is like 260 now.
Oh, okay.
He's fucking...
Was he that big then?
No, he was like 220.
Yeah. So
but
bigger than you.
Bigger than me. Yeah. You know, I was probably 190 at the time. He was 220. But he is also one of the most... He's up there with Seth when it comes to athleticism. Yeah. He's a freak athlete.
Yeah.
And... but it's not just that he's big, strong, and fast. His technique is, I mean, obviously, he has more world titles than anybody. He has all of the pieces of the puzzle. And but it wasn't just Marcus that beat the brakes off me. The purple belts in California were just working to my back and strangling me. And it's like, what is going on down here?
Yeah.
And it's because jiu-jitsu is just on a higher level down there.
Yeah.
You know?
Wow. So 5 years of... Did you stay a brown belt, or you got your black belt while you were there?
I got my right before I left. Yeah. So when I told the guys that, hey, I'm moving back to Washington to be with my dad, I told them the whole story, and I didn't know if it would happen or not. But I'd been a brown belt with them for 5 years. Yeah. And the thing is, brown belt is typically a shorter rank.
Yeah.
You know, like it's very common to spend a lot of time at white belt, blue belt, purple belt, but a lot of times by the time you make brown belt, man, you know how the game is played.
Yeah.
But because I was an import brown belt, I was a new guy. It took them a long time before they're going to bless off on a checkmat black belt for me.
Yeah.
You know?
So I'm curious, like from an etiquette standpoint, and I'm sure it varies gym to gym, owner to owner, professor to professor, like do scenarios exist where that same scenario, you show up as a brown belt from somewhere else, and they're like, dude, you're not a fucking brown belt. Sorry.
No.
Like you can't do that?
That's not part of really jiu-jitsu culture. Yeah. Because I'll tell you this, I literally pulled Buchecha aside after a couple practices. And I said, hey, I don't know if you have the authority to do this or not, but I think I would like to start under you all over, square one. I want to go back to white belt under you. And he laughed. He goes, Greg, no one can take your brown belt.
Really?
He goes, you can't give it up and I can't take it. So it's not even an option. He goes, but what you can do is just be the best brown belt you can be.
Yeah.
Roger that.
So 5 years as a brown belt.
Yeah.
Wow.
But then it put me at black belt right at 10 years.
Yeah.
And I think that's a good amount of time to get to black belt.
Yeah.
And thank God, too, because I heard after the fact that the Gracie Baja gym that I left was thinking about giving me a black belt before I moved to California.
No shit.
And I'm like, God, dude.
Wow.
Thank God. Because, dude, there are guys that get black belt in 5 years.
Yeah.
I'm not BJ Penn.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Farwell.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Man, that's wild shit. All right, so you moved back
2015.
2015 as a black belt.
As a black belt.
And you spend the time with your dad, and then is that when you started the gym? Or
Yep, yeah, right around that same time. So I had already opened a CrossFit gym while I lived. I shouldn't say I opened it, I built it. I had the lot, I had the land, and I was approached by a guy that ran CrossFit, said, hey, I'm looking to expand, and your property we're right along the community trail, and it's a 4-acre lot. And I was like, yeah, I'd be interested in building a gym there. And so we built the gym, and then he ran the business of CrossFit Lake Stevens.
Okay.
And to this day, they're still there. They're like, we are co-located now.
But you were doing that in that year off.
No, I was doing that while I was a deputy in Los Angeles.
Okay.
Because I still owned a lot up there, and it was actually the house that I lived on.
Okay.
That I lived in before I moved to LA.
Okay.
So we built the gym while we were down there. So as we left LA and moved home, I said, now that I'm a black belt, we'll start running jiu-jitsu out of CrossFit Lake Stevens too. And everybody said, like, everybody I knew was like, oh, fuck yeah, dude, I'm going to sign up. I'm going to start training with you.
Nobody did.
Dude, I was doing the math. I was like, I'm going to be making 10 grand a month teaching jiu-jitsu, like right out of the gates. Bro, I think we got like 5 out of the 100 people that said they were going to start training with me actually did.
Yeah.
And it ended up being a very, very slow and painful process growing that gym. And it never really made enough money to be financially viable. But I really enjoyed coaching and teaching too. So we ended up keeping that gym almost as like a hobby gym. And the amount of money that it would make would basically just pay for itself and break even.
Yeah.
It was never financially viable from a business standpoint.
Yeah.
So it didn't take long before I realized, like, okay, I'm not ready. I'm not going to be able to live the dream through jiu-jitsu. I'm probably going to have to go back into something. That's why I ended up going back into local law enforcement up there in Seattle.
How difficult was getting hired on there? I mean, with your background,
Easy.
Was the marshals a hiccup at all from a reference standpoint?
No, not at all.
They didn't.
No, because there was, I resigned from the marshal service.
Okay. So
in lieu of termination.
Yeah. Okay.
But even with how that all played out, there was nothing negative. I was very open about what happened.
Yeah.
I was like, hey, look, I needed to put my family first.
Yeah.
And this is why I did what I did. And they were completely okay with that.
Yeah, that's cool.
I actually I practically got recruited against my will to work for the Port of Seattle.
Oh, really?
Because I would do contracts teaching jiu-jitsu to police recruits in the Washington State Police Academy.
Oh, okay.
So I would teach jiu-jitsu at my gym, and then someone told me, like, bro, there's a lot of money to be made teaching police recruits jiu-jitsu. And I looked into it, bro, $500 a day.
Yeah.
To teach.
Contract money.
Yeah, contract money to teach.
Real contract money.
And so I ended up doing that, and then I was approached by the Port of Seattle because, like, down at the training academy in Washington, everybody's always cycling through there. And one of the sergeants came up and goes, hey, I know your story. I know you left the Marshal Service not too long ago. Come on board with us. And I said, yeah, I don't know about that.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm ready to go back into law enforcement. And man, he showed me their pay and their benefits and their schedule. The Port of Seattle police officers work 3 days on, 4 days off.
Wow.
And it's because it's 3 12-and-a-half-hour shifts.
That's like firefighter schedule shifts.
Yeah. So I was like, fuck, man, that still gives me a lot of time to still be running my academy. Fuck it, let's do this.
Yeah.
Yeah. And to tell you the truth, man, like, I know I got fired and everybody knows the negative side of my involvement with that agency. A lot of cool people, even the leadership, a lot of cool guys. And I enjoyed my day-to-day life being a police officer with that department.
Yeah. You get picked up by Port of Seattle. Was there at any point, like right away, where you're like, fuck, what was I thinking? I've worked for the man for, whatever, or was it a smooth transition?
No, I wasn't just filled with hate and discontent yet.
Yeah.
No, I went from, going from the feds to local was actually like a breath of fresh air. I worked 3 days a week as opposed to 5. And the feds really milk you when it comes to like how many hours they get out of you and how much they're paying you. I started with the Port of Seattle at $100K a year.
Wow.
And as a cop, and then we had great benefits again. And it was actually kind of nice, you know?
And pretty laid back in terms of the actual work you were doing.
Yeah. I mean, the truth is, as a patrol cop in Seattle, you're dealing with bullshit all the time. The one thing that I would say about the Port that was like frustrating at times is like your whole day is not filled fighting crime that's improving your community. It's basically just kicking the can down the road all the time. Drug addicts breaking windows, people like one thing that we dealt with more than anything was that the Seattle Tacoma International Airport falls under the jurisdiction of the port because they have the airport and the seaports. Luggage thefts would consume most of our day sometimes.
Wow.
Because you got homeless people that go in and the carousels there's no kind of security around the carousels.
So just snatching
and they
shit.
just wait for bags to drop and grab a couple suitcases and leave. That's a daily occurrence.
Jesus.
And so that's why I don't fucking check bags anymore, because I've seen what that looks like on the other side. But I mean,
it's like Joe Biden's nuke.
Exactly. Yeah. That's a kind of
cross-dressing nuke guy.
Shit happens every fucking day, man. And, but the thing that would get frustrating about it is not only do they get stolen every day, but airlines misplace luggage every day too. And if the bag does not come out on the carousel, people will come and report it as stolen. And it's like, dude, it's not stolen. It's misplaced by an airline. And our chain of command, like I said earlier, is like they expect us to put work into every case that's brought to us because we have a slower op tempo, and I get that. But I can't tell you how many luggage theft cases I would like write up and do all the paperwork for. And then an hour later, they're like, call me and be like, hey, Alaska Airlines just found my bag. They misplaced it. Yeah. Thanks for all the help. And
thanks,
it's like,
Dick. Use an air tag next time. Fuckwad.
You know?
Yeah.
And so, and then there's a part of me that's too, it's like, fuck, man, like I'm meant to be doing bigger things than stolen bag reports all fucking day.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I chose to do that. That's part of their job. It's part of their jurisdiction. So, I mean, it wasn't the worst thing in the world, but it was also, the more I did it, the more I realized I'm probably on a 5-year fucking
timeline.
It's
a 5-year chunk.
I'm on a 5-year chunk here as well, because and something that I say all the time is that I think law enforcement is a 10-year career.
Yeah.
I think and it's sad because of how it's structured with our society is they make it about chasing your retirement and your pension. And so people put in 10 years, they get burned out, they're sick of it, but then they're like, well, I'm halfway there. I honestly think municipalities need to look into, because you're an employee of the county or of the city, right? I think they need to figure out a way to make the profession of law enforcement something that can transfer into other employment inside of the city, where you're no longer carrying a badge and a gun, but you're still working towards your retirement with that city.
Yeah.
Because, man, and most cops will tell you, I don't know a cop that's been doing the job for 10 years that's not burnt out.
Yeah.
And then once you're doing it burnt out, fuck, nobody wins in that scenario.
Is that irrespective of op tempo and jurisdiction, or is it?
I think it's, at least for the areas that I worked, I think it just starts to become more and more frustrating because you can only give so much energy to something that you're not seeing improvements in.
Yeah.
Because like
it's like working out with no results.
Exactly. Like the harder you work out, the fatter you get.
That sounds awesome.
Yeah, people are going to fucking not want to work out very quick.
Sounds like turning 40. It's
yeah. And so it's like, it got to the point where it's like a lot of people start to come to the conclusion. It's like, why are we doing this?
Yeah.
Why am I waking up and putting on the vest and hitting the streets and doing the job when nobody really cares about it anymore?
Yeah.
And the leadership, and that's in quotations, like the Seattle City Council and the city mayor and all this shit, it's very clear that I used to think it was just incompetence, but let's put on our tinfoil hats. I have to say it's by design at this point that they, for some reason, they want to run our cities into the ground, because how the fuck does it make any sense to just allow these people to keep conducting themselves in the way that they're conducting themselves?
Yeah.
And the thing that I fucking hate is you get these liberal fucktards that want to act like, oh, we're compassionate and we put people first and we care about people. Go work patrol for one fucking week and you'll learn very quickly that all of these addicts that are living in tents in the streets of Seattle, they are in a living hell.
Yeah.
Nothing about allowing those people to perpetuate that lifestyle is rooted in compassion or caring about people, because they're addicts and they're fucked, man.
Yeah.
And there's nothing, the thing that's frustrating about it is like, there's nothing that nobody benefits by just allowing those people to continue to do that.
Yeah. Well, I think to your point, I think that by design is the handful of people that benefit are the people that are in control, which may seem counterintuitive, but you know, the more degraded and chaotic and imbalanced a society is, the more the majority of that population is looking to air quote leadership.
100%.
And they're scared. And so they're like, well, fuck, I got to go with this guy because, you know, and it's just this stupid hamster wheel of stupidity, you know, that most people don't realize is happening.
And then all these leaders get on their pedestal and just spout a bunch of promises that they're incapable of fulfilling anyway. It's just like Gavin Newsom saying that he's going to give African Americans reparations. It's like, no, you're not.
Yeah.
Everybody knows you're not.
Yeah.
But you're going to tell everybody that you are.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
That guy is on another level of douchebaggery.
he's the king douchebag.
Yeah. I mean, he really
I was listening to Frisella on the way in, and he was saying he's the slimiest turd of them all.
Yeah.
And he goes, and you know what kind of turd Newsom is? He goes, he's the big turd that comes out first, the giant one that fills the bowl. He goes, he's not one of those little nuggets that you squeeze out at the end.
That's so true. I mean, that guy, like, he's on almost to an impressive level of
and bro, he even looks it. He
Yeah.
looks like a slimy snake, dude.
He looks like a movie character.
Yeah.
You know, like a bad guy in
With
a
his
movie.
fucking spaghetti noodle arms too.
Yeah.
And bro, it fascinates me. I go off on this shit on my show because it's like the strongest, toughest, most capable men in America, which are our circles of people, take fucking leadership from a guy like Gavin Newsom and take direction from a small, weak, incapable man.
Yeah.
But the rules in which we all agree to operate under right now allow for that.
Yeah. It's fucking
Like
embarrassing.
that fucking dude, that dude would have been fucking picking berries 500 years ago.
Yeah.
You know?
Shit. Well, I mean, or worse.
Yeah.
Yeah. He'd have been
Or
something.
his head would be on display.
Cum sock. But anyway, on a lighter note, so the challenges, you know, I guess from a law enforcement standpoint, were evident fairly early on.
Fairly early.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so you knew there was a shelf life, but at what point were you like, man, this is where I'm taking a stand, and ultimately where the video that you posted in, because I think the technicality was that you posted it in uniform. That was their bitch, right?
So I'll get into that. Yeah. So again, I enjoyed the department and I liked the people that I worked for, but once all the COVID stuff kicked off early on, and I mean, as a business owner too, you know, I shut my gym down because like the Black Plague was coming, right? And then I started to see things that just didn't make sense, you know, and very early on, like certain people were deemed essential and other people weren't. And I started to think about like, okay, well, why would this business be deemed essential and this business isn't? And I remember one of the deciding factors for me was the tags on my truck expired. And I was like, okay, my gym can't be open, but I bet I can go get tags for my truck because that money goes to the government, right? So I call the licensing place. I say, are you guys open for tag renewal? Yeah, we've been deemed essential. I was like, okay, so a little green sticker on my truck is worth risking your life for. But for other people that are cutting hair or teaching CrossFit, that's not essential.
Or providing for their family.
And it started to not make sense. And I think anyone that fucking just detached emotionally and looked at what was happening from an emotionally detached position could see things weren't making sense.
Yeah, it was crystal clear.
Crystal clear, man. And that's what I used to say to people. I was like, dude, I'm a product of fucking public education and a knuckle dragging ranger. And I could see this for what it was. So how are all these people being fucking just blinded and buying all this stuff, hook, line, and sinker? And so as I continued to watch what was occurring, it became clear that this elite class that was pushing this agenda, and they were using us as uniformed law enforcement as their henchmen. Mm-hmm. And it was appalling to me. And every day in the lunchroom, when we're watching this shit on TV, every cop in the lunchroom is disgusted. You know, I remember like yesterday sitting in the lunchroom watching that guy be chased on a paddleboard off of Malibu. You had 2 police boats chasing a dude on a paddleboard for defying the lockdown.
By himself
Out on the fucking ocean.
Yeah.
And like, what are we doing? And that was like, there was a series of things that I was observing that were just pushing me closer and closer to like, what are we fucking doing? And my concern was, if the public looks at us as the government henchmen, what that's going to do is that's going to put the divide between the public trust and the profession of law enforcement. It's going to make that that gap get wider and wider until it's like a fucking canyon. And there's always an ebb and flow to the relationship between the public and the profession of law enforcement. And, you know, you got to remember this was before George Floyd too. So cops weren't the enemy right now, but I felt like we were going to make ourselves the enemy by behaving like this. And like, dude, I'm a fucking police officer. I'm in uniform all day. I don't want everybody looking at cops thinking they're fucking pieces of shit, right? And then I saw cops start to do undercover operations to bust people that were defying the lockdowns. And one of those was they did a undercover sting to bust these ladies somewhere here in Texas for painting nails. And I was like, okay, someone in uniform has to speak out against this. And bro, it wasn't like something that I'd thought about or something that I would like organize. I literally was just like
off the cuff.
Like, guys, listen. And the message in my video, and for people that haven't seen it, it's still all over fucking YouTube and everywhere. But the message wasn't about the validity of COVID. Now, I had my own opinions on COVID, but I knew if I said I think COVID's bullshit, that the message, 50% of the people won't receive the message right out of the gates. So I literally said that. I said, guys, this message isn't about how dangerous COVID is or COVID isn't. This message is about police officers doing things that they do not have the constitutional authority to do. I said, it doesn't matter if your governor says to do otherwise. It doesn't matter if your mayor says to do otherwise. That's not how this profession works. And a mayor can't just arbitrarily decide if you go to the park, you're getting arrested. All right. Laws have to be legislated. Like when I arrest someone, I literally, there's a little block that says like, you know, what RCW was violated. And you have to fucking write that out. Then you also have to write out your probable cause statement saying, this is why I believe this person broke this law. It's very clear on how you enforce the law as a police officer. This was just a gray area where all these fucking governors and mayors were just going out there telling people what to do, and all the cops were out there doing it. And it didn't make any sense to me. We don't have the authority to do that. So why are you doing it? And then the other side of it is, if you had to pick a side on who you were going to stand with, would it be fucking Mayor Jenny Durkin, or would it be the small business owners in Seattle? Like, I don't understand why all these cops were just doing what they were told. But ultimately, it comes down to fear, because they didn't have the courage to say no. And it's like, well, I got kids back home and I might lose my job. I got a mortgage. It's like, I don't give a fuck if you have a mortgage. Like, this person's constitutional rights don't get to get trampled on or not trampled on based on the amount of debt that you hold as an individual. But that's what it became. Yeah. And everybody was being controlled through fear. Man, if police are being controlled through fear, like, we're the first line of defense. And so I just articulated all of that. And I said, you guys are going to turn the public against the profession if you continue to act this way. And so the video went, I mean, bro, I had 1,000 followers on Instagram.
Dude, it went nuts.
And man, I was a jiu-jitsu guy. That was my life. I did jiu-jitsu and I sat in ice water. You can go back to my Instagram pre-2020 and that's all the posts are. Jiu-jitsu and ice water. Yeah. And
so you were Wim Hofen before it was really cool.
Yeah, before it was cool. Yeah. I had a chest freezer that I fucking sealed up and had on my back patio. But man, that thing just went nuts. Hundreds of millions of views. And again, to go back to Andy Frisella, he was one of the first people to reach out to me. He's like, you think how I think. I want you aboard the First Forum team. That's and awesome. I'm just like, what is going on right now? Yeah. You know? But my commander called me and he said, Greg, I liked your video. Everything you said was fucking awesome. This department has your back. You know that. We support everything you said. And to me, and I even said in the video, I said, luckily I work for a department that's ran by good people and they're not asking me to go out there and do this. But if you are part of a department that's going out there and asking you to do that, you are obligated to refuse those orders. And if it costs you your job, so be it. Because just like I said, your debt doesn't supersede people's constitutional rights. And then the same commander called me back like an hour later. And I was like, hey, Greg.
Hey, buddy.
Yeah. And I was like, what's up, sir? He goes, listen, man, I've been directed to
It's out
tell
of
you.
my hands,
Yeah, exactly. I've been directed to tell you got to pull that video down. I said, what are you talking about? I said, an hour ago, it was all good. He goes, yeah, but we just checked it. It's over, I think he said like over 500,000 views. And I was told that you have to pull the plug on this thing. And I said, sir, if you remember of what I said in the video, I literally said, you have to be willing to lose your job as a police officer to stand up and be on the side of right. And I said, right now, I think I'm on the side of right. And if I pull that down because you're telling me to, I'm literally going against what I just said. I said, everybody that holds respect for me will be fucking lost. I said, I'd rather fucking get fired and starve to death than pull that video down.
Yeah.
You know?
Was he like,
Bro, he was like, Greg, dude.
You're being crazy.
Seriously, man. And that's what he said to me. He goes, bro, listen, I checked YouTube. It's all over YouTube already. He goes, I checked Twitter. It's all over Twitter already. He goes, you don't even have a Twitter. People have ripped this thing and it's everywhere. He goes, so you pull it down from your Instagram. The video's not going to disappear. It's still going to be all over the internet. Okay. Your message is still going to be out there. It's still going to be received, but it's going to show that you complied with this order.
fuck you?
And I said, bro, that's where we're different.
Yeah. Fuck no.
That's where I'm different, man.
Yeah.
I'd rather die.
Yeah.
And I would, man.
Yeah. I mean, there's
And
no way I'm pulling that down.
And I want to, since I'm going to turn the tables and become the interviewer
Please
again,
do.
right? Something that I think in our youth, when we were surrounded by violence and the potential of losing our life, was something that was very real and very tangible. And I think guys like us came to accept that like our demise is just part of what we do.
Yeah. It's coming.
It's coming.
Yeah.
And you kind of, and this isn't like tough guy beating your chest stuff. It's just, you accept that life is finite and you accept that this ride that we're on is coming to an end.
No, I agree. And I think there's like almost an overwhelming freedom
That's what I was just going to say.
that's derived from that.
It sounds kind of morbid, but
No,
it
it sets
also
you free.
it sets you fucking free.
Yeah.
And I've been able to walk, like people said the same thing to me, bro, you're leaving the fucking U.S. Marshals. Yeah, I don't care, man.
Yeah.
I'll figure out what's next. And then it was the same thing with this. It's like, I'll fucking starve to death
Yeah.
before I'll rescind my words because another man is telling me to.
Well, the thing that, not to blow our own horns, I mean, it's not exclusive to special operations guys, but the mentality that in a positive way runs rampant within the soft community and higher levels of law enforcement and even federal agencies, what have you, is that when you're in a job, that the job itself dictates that you have to be able to overcome adversity and change shit on the fly and adapt and overcome and do things that are unconventional and figure out a way around really serious and significant problems. That too, it sets you up to basically be in a position to be like, I'll do whatever the fuck I want.
100%.
Because I'll tell you what, like, I'm not going to starve. Like, you can fire me, but I'll figure out a way to fucking survive.
That's it. And then you can't, if you don't hold that fear, if you're not a fearful person.
Yeah. Like, I don't give a fuck what you do.
Then
like,
you can't control me with the fear.
Yeah, I will figure out a way to thrive. Not just survive, but to fucking win.
And it's funny too, because when my commander called me, it was, the video was made, I think it was a Tuesday, and then I was off work. Yeah. I didn't go back to work the next day because it was my day off. So when my commander called me the second time, me and my wife were actually at a coffee stand getting coffee, and I put it on speaker so she could hear. And he's like, Greg, I need you to pull the video down. And she looks over at me and she goes, I already know where this is going. And I said, babe, you know me and I don't have a choice.
Yeah.
And she goes, I know you don't.
Yeah.
And I was like, dude, my wife's badass. Because
awesome.
so many wives would be like, what are we going to do? You're not going to have a job, and blah, blah, blah.
Well, to me, that's where, not to interrupt, but like that's where really the crux of your relationship, existing or not, hinges on, dude, do you trust me to be the provider and protector of this family?
Yep.
Then don't fucking worry about it.
Don't fucking worry about it. And then the universe does what the universe does. Yeah. And, bro, we had $500,000 in a GoFundMe
crazy.
In about 48 hours.
Dude, that is awesome.
And it was like, oh fuck, dude.
Now what?
And that's why I told Jenny, I said, like, man, I knew I needed to take a stand, but I didn't know that taking that stand would resonate with so many Americans that then, and GoFundMe is public knowledge. I have a lot of people that hate on me for the GoFundMe. Like, you got given everything and you didn't have to fucking earn it. You were just blah, blah, blah. It's like, go look at the GoFundMe, and almost all of the donations are between $5 and $10.
Yeah.
People forewent a cup of coffee that morning because they said, you know what? That cop said some shit that resonates with me. I'm going to throw him $5.
Yeah.
But when that happens 100,000 times, boom.
That's crazy, man.
And the thing is, I went on Laura Ingram's show, and she had some hotshot attorney like co-hosting with her that's like, we're going to take your department and we're going to go to a fucking court and we're going to sue them for everything and blah, 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 blah. They did this to you. They did that to you. And so like the GoFundMe initially was, I was going to fucking go to war with them for the principle of firing me. And then off the air, the lawyers are singing a very different tune. Like, oh, well, when we review your police department's policy, it looks like
very clear.
Yeah, it's very clear that, they crossed their T's and they dotted their I's, and we're going to have a hard time winning in court because of this and because of that. And so lawyers still want to take all your money. Don't get me wrong. But initially out of the gates, they were saying like, oh, we're going to take this on a percentage. And the truth is, I didn't even care what that percentage was. I was like, you guys can take 90% of the winnings just because that's going to be a moral victory. And we went through several different lawyers, and they all came back with the same thing. They're like, we can't take this case on a percentage because there's a low percentage chance we win. And then after $30,000 in lawyer fees, I realized, I was like, you know what?
Fuck these guys.
We're going to lose all of this money pissing it away on lawyers when most of them are already telling us we're not going to win anyways.
Yeah.
And that's when we had to shift. And I said, okay, like, what do we do right now? I said, okay, there's a couple different things that I want to do, but let's put all our eggs back in jiu-jitsu. And the thing was, because this story was so big and there was a spotlight on me, there was a spotlight on my academy, man, jiu-jitsu, and also just the culture around jiu-jitsu was different than it had been over the last couple of years. You got all the guys like Rogan and Jocko and Andy, everybody's preaching jiu-jitsu, and jiu-jitsu as a whole was starting to get more momentum. And so we expanded the academy a little bit. I expanded my hours. I started a kids program, and boom. And that was where the magic happened, starting a kids program. Almost all of my adult members are parents of kids.
Really?
Yeah.
Damn, that's wild.
Yeah, it's like they see the value in the academy, because a lot of adults don't look at jiu-jitsu as something that's viable for them to do. Mm-hmm. But my kids' classes run from 5 to 6, and then my adult classes run from 6 to 7:30. And as all the kids are stepping off the mats, all the adults are stepping on, the parents are like, hey, you think I could try this? And so, man, my jiu-jitsu academy grew exponentially over the last few years. And then we also ended up defying the lockdowns. Yeah. We were, like I said, we were closed for a little bit, and then I openly defied them after it started to not make sense. And we were the only show in town. Yeah. There were people showing up. They're like, I don't even know what jiu-jitsu is, but, but I got to get out of the house and do something. Yeah.
Well, so is it also safe to say that you're not teaching any of the local law enforcement jiu-jitsu anymore after that?
Oh, no. We got lots of cops at my academy.
I mean, but like contracted to...
Oh, no. Never again. Yeah. And I'm not saying that because there's any beef or anything, but I'll tell you, one of the expectations of training all the police recruits, and they wanted me to roll with all these kids too. Yeah. And like as a black belt that's very good at jiu-jitsu, you would think rolling with
that's how you get hurt.
That's how you get fucking hurt, bro. Yeah. And I would roll with all these kids on a regular basis, and I'd come home and feel like I was in an MMA fight.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, doing it over and over where guys are spazzing out.
They're spazzing the fuck out. And it's not training jiu-jitsu. It's training with a guy that doesn't know how to fight, who's trying to fight you. Yeah. And it gets fucking exhausting.
Yeah. And I mean, doing that once real world is one thing, you know.
Yeah, exactly.
Doing it over and over and over, day in, day out is fucking dumb.
Yeah, because you know how it is. Once you know how to train, dude, we dial it back enough to where our training is real. It will be applicable in a real world encounter, but we're also taking care of ourselves.
Yeah, it's relatively safe.
Yes.
You know, of course, there's freak things that happen. But yeah, I mean, that's why I only do, privates with a few different guys, and they'll bring different guys in occasionally just to kind of see where I'm at and whatever. But, I did, a couple of years of group classes before that, and the learning curve isn't comparable. you know? I mean, I know there's people that would argue like, oh, it's better to do group classes, it's better, whatever. For me personally, the goals that I have, which is to not compete, I don't give a fuck about being promoted. It's 100% real.
Yeah, you want better
realistic.
jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, like I want, if the situation presents itself to where I have to go hands-on with somebody in a real-world scenario, I want to maximize my chance for success.
Yeah.
That's it. Like, that's the only reason I fucking train, know? So for me, and I want to be, physically fit or healthy enough to where I can do the other things that I need to do professionally, i.e. handling dogs and whatever else. And it's still a balance because, I push the envelope training as much as I can and find that, there's always something that hurts. It's my shoulder or my knee or fucking groin, there's always something that's nagging, but nothing that's putting me completely out of the fucking loop. Nothing that, a few days off in a row won't fix. But anyway, bringing it back to your story, in that kind of environment, did you find that as the gym grew, that your desire or goals pivoted at all, or did you want to just kind of continue to grow the gym the way that you were?
I could tell you that for a long time, I thought the gym was about teaching people jiu-jitsu. But what has really made my gym blow up and made me become very successful as a coach over the last couple of years is I've realized, man, jiu-jitsu is a small part of what you're selling people. Really what you're selling people is culture. If you give people an opportunity and a place to come together and do hard things with each other and overcome some adversity and challenge themselves physically and mentally, what that does is it builds a culture in a room where people have a lot of respect for each other. They have a lot of admiration for each other. And what I've found over my academy over the last couple of years is that's what people are coming there for.
Yeah.
Now fighting and being able to protect yourself, all that is a great byproduct. But man, people show up there because our academy is, the term safe space has been hijacked by the left and now it has like weak connotations to it. But the truth is people show up there because that's like their home away from home.
Yeah. I mean, I'd call it tribe,
Yeah, it's a tribe. We're building culture there. Yeah. And once I've realized, because I used to have kind of imposter syndrome as a coach, because I was like, man, my coaches were both world champions. My coaches were guys that can fucking kill me in 10 seconds if they wanted to. I'm not one of those guys. But I've realized over the last couple of years, I don't need to be one of those guys. I need to be me. And my strength is building culture and helping people become a better version of themselves. And then seeing the kids do it too. Man, I tell people all the time, running my academy has, over the last year, it's been the most rewarding phase of my entire life.
Yeah.
And nothing else I've done has held a candle to it, because watching a 10-year-old girl who has no confidence and is very shy and is physically weak change into someone that now walks in and with her shoulders back, her head is up, and she looks you in the eyes, and then she goes and strangles a little boy. And it's like,
and makes fun of him.
Yeah, dude, the trajectory of her life was forever changed.
Yeah, for sure.
Because she shared 3 months with me.
Yeah, dude, that's awesome.
And now it makes me like, I say it all the time. It's like, dude, Bruchesha may be the best in the world, but I'll put myself up against him any day of the week in running an academy and providing value for people.
Yeah.
And that's not a dig at him, because he's a great coach. And when I was one of his students, he provided a ton of value to me. But I feel like I've figured out the code of what jiu-jitsu is about.
Yeah. Well, I think one of the biggest things that's lacking in society, our society today, is struggle and challenge and doing hard things.
100%.
And so not only is that important, but doing it with other people is equally important.
So I'll tell you, like, this is a kind of a little sneak peek, but Mike Glover is a friend of mine, and I was at his house a few months back, and he's like, dude, have you started your book yet? I was like, no. He goes, well, my book comes out January 6th.
Yeah.
So his book dropped yesterday. And I was like, man, you're the busiest guy I know, and you just released a book. I've wanted to release a book for a long time, but I just haven't got around to it yet. Yeah. And so now I'm 50 pages in and I'm being disciplined. But the title of the book is Courage Through Adversity.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Because I believe the more hard things you put in front of yourself and that you subject yourself to, the easier it is to become a courageous person that's willing to stand up for what you think is right.
Yeah.
And jiu-jitsu, in my opinion, is one of the best tools for that.
Agreed. Yeah.
You know, I tell my students all the time, I say, your jiu-jitsu is going to save you in ways that you never even know. You know, like I could give you a million examples where, like, you know, when I was with the Marshal Service, for example, some of those supervisors that are ego-driven maniacs, the way they talk to some deputies is very different than how they talk to me, because they know if this were to go to a fucking primal level, I'll rip your fucking head off your body.
Yeah.
And when another man knows that about you, it forces them to interact with you a little differently.
Yeah, for sure.
And I think it's an important thing that, like, our monkey brain is always there.
Yeah. No, I agree. And I think to that point too, the like the confidence that you get is unmistakable from that also, you know. I mean, and to me what's strange is there's really no other martial art like it. Like I grew up doing a few different kind of old school, keep in mind this is the 90s where things were just a lot different. Also, it's like Black Belt magazine was the Bible. And you know, so it was Okinawan karate based stuff, but we did, you know, some boxing and wrestling and foot fighting and stick fighting and you know, kickboxing. I mean, it was kind of a mix, or it was almost MMA before MMA was a thing. But none of it had the same impact that, for whatever fucking reason, you know, jiu-jitsu just has this strange 3D chess like life parallel to it that just doesn't really exist in any other martial arts.
So I have a theory on this, and I haven't heard this anywhere else. So when this takes off and everybody in jiu-jitsu starts talking about this, as Greg Anderson said that, because I fought MMA. I've done more rounds of boxing and Muay Thai than I can remember. And the same thing, the culture is just a little different, and you don't bond with the people the same way you bond with jiu-jitsu guys. Yeah. And it doesn't have that tribal connection like jiu-jitsu does. I honestly think, and let's put on our fucking tinfoil hats, right? But are you familiar with the concept of grounding?
Yeah.
All right. Grounding used to be fucking hippie tree hugger nonsense. Well, grounding has actually been proven through science now.
Yeah, it's like a shared energy thing.
Yes. Man. I think we ground with each other when we are having intimacy. And don't mistake intimacy for sexuality. There's no sexuality on the mats.
Yeah. Well, but if you and I go, there might be. Play your cards right, Greg. I'll tell you what.
Well, I get people all the time like, dude, it looks fucking gay. Yeah. I was like, do a 10-minute round with me and tell me if there's anything.
Tell me if you want to blow me afterwards.
Yeah, if there's anything that feels sexual about it. Because I promise you there's not.
Yeah.
And I mean, I've had fucking plenty of female training partners that are beautiful women. When you are going against them in a jiu-jitsu capacity, there is no sexual energy, but there is an intimacy shared. And when you know how, like, when you're a little kid and you beat the crap out of each other at the bus stop, then that kid's your best friend afterwards. There's something about sharing physical adversity with another person that bonds you to them. And I think it is something to do with, like, the grounding aspect of our bodies. I mean, why is a handshake and a hug like something we do socially when we greet someone? Touching another person, there's something in our bodies that appreciates that. And
I think it's because a thumb in the ass would be too forward.
No, those are wrestlers.
Yeah. Oh, okay, that's right.
But yeah, I just don't think you can share. We do 6-minute rounds at my academy, and we do 5 rounds at the end of practice. So the last half hour is 5 rounds of live training, and you fucking connect to people for a half hour straight. When you're done, you feel exhausted, but you also feel reinvigorated too. And I think that's something to do with that shared energy. And that is why jiu-jitsu is taking off and other martial arts aren't. Yeah. Because the truth is, I love Muay Thai. I think, you know, if I get in a street altercation, my Muay Thai is hands down going to be what I use first. I'm only going to use jiu-jitsu if I have to. Yeah. It's like you talked about earlier, like running away from the altercation
is your best bet.
And Muay Thai gives you mobility and the ability to, like, if I have to punch or strike you, I can. I don't want to be on the ground with someone. And so I think jiu-jitsu is highly, highly applicable for self-defense. But if I could be Nostradamus and look into a crystal ball and say, you're never going to get into another altercation again, I'm still going to be at the gym tomorrow night training with the guys.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Well, one thing, I think it makes a lot of sense. I mean, the primal intimacy aspect, I think, is significant and agreed. I mean, especially when you battle it out with somebody. It's no different than, having gone through hard training in the military with guys. Like it forms a bond.
For sure.
Suffering with somebody and having that shared experience, and especially when it's against each other, there's nothing else like it, But
yeah, and a lot of people, like for us, we did log drills and selection where you're holding a log over your head for 2 hours with a squad of men, and like we've seen how that adversity can bond you. Yeah. But for a lot of people, they've never experienced anything like that before. Yeah. And when they touch that on the mats, man, I've had a lot of guys over the last, 2 or 3 months, I've noticed a shift because I offer a week free trial, right? And guys will do one class and be like, where do I sign up? And I'm like, bro, you got a week free trial. I don't give a shit about the free trial.
Yeah.
This is my home now.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Well,
yeah, I mean, similarly, I kind of have a bit of a theory as far as the popularity of that and the desire for that. In seeing the shift, over the last couple of decades of how popular like Tough Mudders and Spartan races and shit like that are, or even just the attachment to Viking and Spartan culture.
Yes.
Because the emasculated American male has been degraded to the point where like there's no a significant feeling of purpose for a lot of guys. They've not done anything that's challenged them or made them feel like a competent, capable man. And so they're searching for something that will make them feel that.
And I would say like, if you remember, it was like the 70s and the 80s where they made everything fat free.
Yeah.
And then they started pumping everybody full of high fructose corn syrup. Everybody started getting fat and weak. And then remember, the fitness solutions that were being presented were always the easiest thing.
Yeah.
It was like
Thigh Master.
Here, the Thigh Master, or stand here and have a burlap band jiggle your ass and it'll get the fat off you. Yeah. And for a long time, everybody was looking for the easiest solution to the problem. And I would say over the last decade, the fitness industry has finally come to the realization, like, there's no free lunch.
Yeah.
If you want to be better, it's going to be hard.
Yeah, you got to earn it.
And that's when things like, one of the first things to do that, and this might sound fucking silly, but it was P90X.
Yeah.
Do you remember that program? Yeah. Bro, go do P90X. It
That's
kicks
a
your
ball
ass.
buster, yeah.
It kicks your ass.
And then CrossFit.
Yeah. You know what? If you want to be fit, it's going to be really fucking hard.
Yeah.
And you just have to accept that and you have to embrace that. For guys like us, we accepted that as 18-year-olds. Mm-hmm. But for a lot of people that were kind of sold the lie of like, oh, hey, you can just, do this Jenny Craig diet and do the Thigh Master for 10 minutes and you'll be good.
Take some hydroxycut.
Yeah. The myth is no longer accepted, I think.
Yeah.
And people now know.
Yeah. Yeah. One thing I'm curious of, and I'd love to get your take on it, both as a law enforcement guy and a jiu-jitsu practitioner / coach. Why does there seem to be such a disconnect with law enforcement training?
Bro.
Like to me, of any profession in the world, like it seems like, you talk about Muay Thai, but like for law enforcement.
Do we have 3 more hours?
Yeah. Well, we got all fucking day. I got to turn the heat back down because Jesus Christ, it just got hot in here. But
yeah. So this has been something that I struggle with and that I've never understood. And a lot of cops are just, I don't know. A lot of cops will say like, oh, I can't afford it. Or even though they're driving a fucking 2020 Raptor lifted, like cops make enough money to train. The truth is they don't want to train.
A lot of places will do it for free even.
And the thing is, these departments, everything in the department is dictated by policy. And policy, if you dig deep enough, more often than not, it's not geared towards making you the best officer. And this isn't a dig at the profession. This just is what it is. Most policy is a CYA thing. Yeah. So if our officers are allowed to implement a rear naked choke, and it's called the LVNR in the the law enforcement world.
Which stands for what?
Lateral vascular neck restraint. It's fucking choking someone, right? Yeah. If our officers are authorized to use an LVNR on patrol, then we have to show that they have this many hours of training. And so training inside of the agency is all more about meeting the needs of policy as opposed to making the best police officers that you can. Yeah. And the truth is, the departments don't have the resources or the time to make you a proficient grappler. Because the truth, you have to spend, I think that every police officer in America should be a blue belt.
Yeah.
You should have put in 2 years of hard training. I tell cops this all the time, even if you hate it. It's not about doing something you like. It's about doing something that's going to make you proficient at your job. Mm-hmm. Go out and invest in yourself. If you want to fucking come home at the end of the night, go out there and train. Yeah. You want to do your job better, go out there and train. I used to think about it when I was on patrol. Because, bro, you'll be drinking coffee one day, and it's 7 a.m, and 4 minutes later, you're fighting a dude that weighs 250 pounds.
Yeah, for your life.
That's the profession of law enforcement.
Yeah.
We are reactive 99% of the time. You don't get to choose how your day goes. And if you know that you might be fighting, like I fought a 270-pound Samoan who was high on PCP.
As a
cop. And I fucked that dude up. And I tell people, I was like, PCP gives you superhuman strength. It doesn't give you superhuman technique.
Yeah, or air.
Or air, right? And
so you got to tell us, like, what happened.
Dude, so again, it was early in the morning. I'm drinking coffee, and I was parked on the airfield. So the airfield of SeaTac Airport is also part of our jurisdiction, and they like a police presence, but it's also the place you go park and sham for a little bit and have your coffee. And I get a call we get dispatched that there's a car theft in progress, and the guy's in a parking garage, and he's ramming people out of his way to get out. That's pretty fucking egregious.
Yeah.
And then a female partner of mine went in to block him in, and he rammed her out of the way. It's like, dude, you're ramming a police car out of the way. Like, that's encroaching on a potentially deadly force scenario. Mm-hmm. He hit a pedestrian. Like, it was getting fucked up. And so I responded, and we had him kind of boxed in, but he was trying to fucking like ramming, trying to get out of where he was at. And I was like, dude, if this guy gets out of this fucking contained area, he's probably going to kill someone. And so like, and I don't know if this is the best tactical solution, but I was like, something you have to think about as a cop. It's not always about your safety. It's about the community's safety. And sometimes you have to risk a little to get a little. And I literally ripped his door open and mounted him in the driver's seat of his car.
So let's pause real quick. In that scenario, is there a thought process for you that says, I can shoot him, I can tase him, or I can dive in the fucking car? Like, did you go through that mental process?
So I was like the third or fourth officer on scene, and there was already cops with their guns out, with their tasers out. Everybody's screaming verbal commands. Get out, park the car, get out of the car, show me your hands. And I could realize, like, this dude's out of his fucking mind. He's not listening to any of this. None of that is a viable solution right now. I'm going to fuck this dude up. And I even said it at the time. I was like, it didn't feel like I'm a police officer and I'm going to enforce the law. It felt like, you know how sometimes a dude just needs to get fucked up right now?
It's just good versus evil.
It's fucking go time.
Yeah.
And I fucking just jumped in that car and hammered that dude. And like the whole fight took place in the car.
So, were you striking him?
Oh, yeah. I broke his orbital, like broke his jaw. Like he was fucked up afterwards.
Did you choke him out at all? Or
no, I couldn't. Yeah, I couldn't get, like, as I just kept fucking punching him. And I broke a bone in my hand doing it too. He like fell over in the cab, and it was like, there's not room to get behind him.
Yeah.
To like really control him with a Kimura or get around his neck or anything.
I thought you'd go seatbelt around the neck.
But I was able to stay on top of him and incapacitate him. And then 2 other cops opened the passenger door, and then we drug him out and got him in custody. But the whole reason of going down the rabbit hole of that story is that's police work.
Yeah.
You're drinking your coffee. 2 minutes later, you're fighting a dude that has 70 fucking pounds on you.
Yeah.
And I always think about this. How could I go to work and put the uniform on and feel comfortable with who I am as a person, going out there knowing that that's a potential in my morning, but have no clue on how to fucking fight?
Yeah.
and most cops do that.
Yeah.
And the thing is, like departments will say, we don't have the funding or the resources. They can't pay cops 2-hour salary every day to go train. And a lot of cops, if they'll say like, I'm not getting paid for it, I'm not doing it.
I mean, to me, that's just like, I would, from a personal responsibility standpoint, like I'd be training my ass off if I'm going out and having
100%. Bro, it'd be like when you were in the team saying, like,
I mean, I train my ass off anyway.
The likelihood of me getting in a shooting as a SEAL is low right now because, well, it's a peacetime army, so I'm not going to the range.
Yeah. That's crazy.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. Man, it's wild.
I think that's one of the biggest deficiencies in law enforcement is that a lot of officers are unwilling to really hone the hand-to-hand combat side of the job.
Yeah.
And what that does is it leads to a culture where people want to rely on tools.
Yeah.
If you want to rely on your taser and you want to rely on your little bottle of pepper spray, that's fine. But when it doesn't work, now what?
Yeah.
But it also allows you to interact with people in a different manner because I'm not afraid of fighting you.
Yeah.
Like a perfect example of that is we had a trespass call. And trespasses are literally like bottom of the totem pole. You don't even arrest them. You just say, like how we would deal with it. If someone was trespassing, we would show up and we say, hey, you can't be here for this reason. And here's a little piece of paper called a criminal trespass admonishment that says you can't come back here. Have a nice life. And that's the end of it. And we showed up and this dude's ears were gnarlier than mine.
Yeah.
And he was high on meth. And I was like, I mean, I see what's going on, right? And, man, one of my partners started kind of talking to the guy like a dick, right? And it's like, okay, you see where this is going. We're actually amping the guy up, right? And he started like, and like clenching his fist and shit, which in the professional law enforcement, you call them pre-assault indicators. And it's just like what people do, their physiology, when they start to think they're going to get into a fight, right? And so I saw him doing this and I just called it right on the spot. I said, bro, I see your fucking gnarled ears, but look at mine. I got the same shit going on. I said, so I know you like fighting, but guess what? I like fighting too. So I see you getting all amped up like you're ready to throw down. If you want to beat the fuck out of each other, I'm down. Let's go. Or if you want to be cool to each other, that works for me too. So I'll let you choose from here out. And he goes, man, no cops ever talked to me like that before. He goes, you seem cool, bro. Like, you seem cool. I said, well, where'd you get your ears? He goes, bro, I wrestled all through college. I said, what the fuck are you doing addicted to meth? And he goes, man, I moved to Seattle because I wanted to pursue MMA. He goes, I lived in Alaska, and there's some good MMA teams down here. And he goes, bro, and I got hurt, and I got addicted to drugs. And then I talked to the guy, and actually, like, it's easy to be cool with him if you're confident in who you are.
Yeah.
If you're not confident in who you are, you have to project all of this, get on the ground, show me your hands, like big dick measuring contests. Mm-hmm. And so, no factor. Like, hey, all right, here, you're not supposed to be here, and this is why. Have a nice life. All right, cool, man.
Yeah.
That's wild. And then I remember saying to some of the cops, I was like, just so you know, if you've never had your hands on a collegiate athlete, a collegiate wrestler, I have plenty of times. You guys weren't fucking ready for what that was about to be.
Yeah. Yeah, no shit.
Well,
there's a part of it too. I mean, I wasn't a cop, but looking at from an outsider's perspective of what seems like it's I won't say a plague, but it's something that impacts the law enforcement community seemingly significantly, is that lack of confidence.
Yeah.
Physical confidence. And also like there's something about, I mean, it's the same thing in the SEAL teams in the water. There's something about being comfortable in the water that most people don't possess that will keep you from drowning. Is when shit goes fucking sideways underwater, like most people panic, they run out of air and they fucking drown. Mm-hmm. Being able to stay calm comes with practice. Similarly, like when you're rolling with people and you're almost choked out, right? But you manage to get out of it. Like you,
yes, dude.
As you grow and get more and more comfortable being uncomfortable in those physical positions, to me, I know for a fact that now in a real world scenario, that's giving you not just a level of confidence in dealing with somebody, but also dialing back your reactivity to a place where I truly believe, like if it was mandatory that every law enforcement officer was a blue belt or at least trained, there would be less shootings.
100%.
There would be less problems.
Dude, there's a physiological adaptation that happens when you grapple other human beings on a regular basis. And I hate to say this about myself, but it's the truth. But I have a quit button inside of me. Like, I've had those Brazilian monsters on top of me where like they're just smashing me and cross facing me and like I can't breathe. And you start to get that anxious response. So that's your fight or flight response kicking in. But when you can't get away and you can't win the fight, that causes anxiety. And that's when people panic. A saying that you hear a lot in the mixed martial arts world is you can't teach heart. And I disagree with that, because I've not only seen it in myself, I've seen it in a lot of my students. The more you push them, the farther you can take them into those deep waters. And you said it perfectly. I say this all the time. You need to find comfort in a very uncomfortable situation. So when you have that big giant on top of you who's dripping sweat in your eyes and you can't fucking move and your heart starts racing, you start to feel scared, then you have to tell yourself, I mean, I have this conversation. I don't have this anymore very often because I'm a black belt and I'm one of the big fish in the academy. But coming up through the ranks, when you're getting your ass kicked every night, I remember having those conversations in my head. It's like, there's something inside of you telling you to tap out, but you're not in a submission.
Yeah.
I was like, bro, don't tap.
Don't tap to suck or pressure.
Because you're fucking scared. Don't tap because you feel anxiety. I said, what you need to do is calm yourself down and think about, instead of thinking about feeling scared, think about how to get out of this situation. What technique do I need to try and employ to start to get my guard back or hit a reversal? Once you can learn to have conversations with yourself like that in the midst of physical adversity, man, that puts people light years ahead of where most people are at. Yeah. Because in most people, you see it all the time. Do you follow Tom DeBlass?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so Tom posts stuff all the time about cops getting fucked up.
Yeah, and bro, it's like, hey, come train for free. Find that guy.
When someone grabs you and puts you on the ground and you don't have answers, that fucking panicked state, you can't think clearly unless you've been there for hundreds of hours in training.
Yeah.
And so it's like, that's what people need to realize. It's not like, oh, hey, this is how you do a Kimura trap. And that's what I used to say in department training all the time. Because it's like, hey, teach people how to put them into a Kimura and then go into a handcuffing position. All good stuff to know, right? But where the real benefits of training come out is those live rolls where you're figuring out how to deal with the emotions of a fight.
Yeah. Well, and, not just with law enforcement, it's I think, pretty obvious how beneficial that would be. But the parallels between that and every aspect of life are enormous too. I mean, to me,
bro, jiu-jitsu is a mirror of life.
Yeah. I mean, in so many ways, like, not to spend the whole episode blowing fucking jiu-jitsu.
Bro, yeah. I mean, that's half of my podcast. I talk about jiu-jitsu all the time. Yeah. And it's like, dude, my 14-year-old daughter could fuck up plenty of full-grown American men.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
That's awesome.
It's nuts, dude.
I mean, it's embarrassing and awesome. Awesome for your family, embarrassing for the country. Yep. So what now for you? Kind of what are the next stages and what are you looking to do? You going to run for office or?
No. Yeah. Fucking, dude, I get people asking me that all
same
the time. And it's like, I mean, there's a part of me, like what's the quote? It says like men that are unwilling to run office or hold positions in office or
give good hand jobs.
Yeah. Are destined to be ruled by fools or something like that. Right. And it's like, I'm not ruling that out.
Yeah.
Maybe in my 50s or something, I will revisit that because I don't want any part of that. But at the same time, men that don't want any part of that are probably the people that should be doing it.
Yeah.
Right?
No, agreed.
But right now, I'm in the transition between leaving government service. I mean, it's only been 3 years, right? And I've been on the government tit since I was 18 until I was basically, I think, like 30 or 39 years old.
Yeah.
And now I'm learning how to grow my own empire. And I'm watching that come to fruition in real time. And I'm going to continue nurturing that, and I'm going to continue building that. And I want absolute financial freedom. I want to make a bunch of money. Oh, money is evil. You can't aspire to be rich. Yes, you can. Like money can do great things for you. And I'm doing a lot of different things right now with the podcast. Andy Stumpf invited me on Cleared Hot right after my video, and I ended up doing that. And as a result, we got inundated with emails. It was like, that was one of my favorite episodes of Cleared Hot. When are you going to start a podcast? And I heard that message enough that we started the podcast, and now it's doing well.
Yeah.
And I tell people, like, the podcast generates more money than I made as a U.S. Marshal.
Yeah, it's wild.
And I'm not saying that as like a fucking beat your chest thing, but the reason I think it's important to say is because there are tons of soldiers, first responders, police officers that are at the end of their ropes with what they're doing. It's never too late to pivot. It's never too late to start something new. And I never thought that podcasting would be a viable source of income.
Yeah.
And it's doing very well.
Yeah, that's awesome.
My jiu-jitsu academy is doing very well. We ended up buying a big piece of property in the mountains and building a firearm range on it.
Oh, that's cool.
And then Glover came out there.
He just started training, right? Jiu-jitsu?
Yeah. Yeah, no, me and Glover are going to do some big things in the jiu-jitsu
awesome,
world.
man.
Yeah, Fieldcraft Jiu-Jitsu is going to be like, we're going to partner and we're going to do
cool.
big things with that.
Yeah.
And just all the stuff is kind of happening at once. And Fieldcraft is partnering with us on the range that we built out there. Mike's been out there a handful of times and run his different courses. And like, I'm realizing like, dude, we can kind of do whatever we want in this world.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know?
I mean, most limitations are self-imposed.
Yeah.
Is there a principle that you think from a takeaway standpoint for the listener, how to unfuck America?
The motto of my podcast is it's become, no one's coming to save you. And, we got shirts and hats and it's cool to say, but if you take that saying and you really dissect it, it's not like doom and gloom. It's not like a doomsday prepper mentality. I just think if you come to the understanding that we are our own first responder, we are our own first line of defense, you are responsible for yourself and your family, instead of outsourcing it to the government. Because I feel like on one hand, it's cool that we don't live in a third world shithole and we can go to the store with our kids and get ice cream and no one's going to get killed. But the other side of that is we've outsourced our own abilities as men, and we've seen what that's done over the last 4 decades. It's perpetually made us weaker and weaker and weaker. And if you try and live your life from the standpoint that no one's coming to save you, you are responsible for being the best version that you can be. You are responsible for providing your family with safety and security. Well, if you're responsible for those things, guess what that means? That means you have to put an emphasis on your fitness. You have to take care of your body. You have to make sure what you're eating and drinking is gonna build your machine into something that's capable of doing those things. But if you don't put an emphasis on that and you're willing to outsource your security, well, fuck, you can just become a fat, lazy piece of shit because someone else is going to take care of it.
Yeah.
Whereas if you understand no one's coming to save you, and you start to understand you have to prioritize everything in your life and you have to make sure that you make it happen, what that does is it actually, we talked about earlier getting set free. That for me is another mentality that set me free. And I talk about it on my show all the time. If you take the time to invest in physical fitness, invest in building good relationships with people, because that's a tier of preparedness that people don't talk about very much.
Yeah.
But having a good network of people, learning how to defend yourself through the use of different firearms or jiu-jitsu, if you invest in some of these things and the world's trajectory changes and America becomes this utopia that's extremely safe and you never need any of that, you're still going to be a better man for it. So you have nothing to lose by investing in yourself.
Yeah.
And for some reason, you can see that I feel like America's going in 2 directions. There's people that still just don't give a shit and poison their body, eat terrible food, and don't invest in themselves at all. And then there's people that are seeing like, oh, I do have to become better. Andy Frisella says it all the time, and I hate that he coined this term because I wish I coined it, but personal excellence is the ultimate rebellion.
Yeah.
And if each one of us on an individual basis can figure out how to become the best version of you, that's how society collectively becomes better.
Yep.
Instead of worrying about what everybody else is doing that's fucked up, how do I be the best version of me? and you start moving forward towards that goal, that's when we all win, man.
Yeah. I talk a lot about that in my Unfuck America book, which I'm going to give you a copy.
Oh, fuck yeah.
All brilliant and well put points, and I couldn't agree more. What didn't I ask you that I should have?
Fuck, I don't know, man. I feel like you know everything about me now.
Well, what's your favorite sexual position? Do you have one?
We like to start with her on top, and then we usually end with me on top.
All right. I mean, that's if that's not honest, I don't know what is. Is Mama going to be all right with that?
Dude,
she's not going to listen.
Mama's cool as fuck.
Yeah, she doesn't give a fuck. Huh?
She knows. I mean, she knows who she married, and she knows I'm a wild man. And she.
Hopefully, the kids don't listen to this.
You know what's funny is now that I have a podcast and I'm on YouTube, and my Instagram has like 120,000 followers, like. You're like a celebrity, Dad. You have a blue check mark, right? But every once in a while, my daughters will send me something that's like, hey, one of my friends was listening to your podcast and you said, and I was like, well,
that's out of context.
I don't necessarily want my kids hearing that, but I can't not be authentic because your kids might hear something.
Yeah, no, I'm right there with you. 3 guests that you would recommend to have on here.
Fuck, man, you've probably had most of the guests. Brian Ray, I really liked having him on, who you've already had. You know who was a fascinating podcast was the doctor that did my stem cells.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, his name's Andy Doe.
How do you spell his last name?
D-O-E.
Okay.
And he did my show, and it was fucking awesome, man.
Yeah.
You know? And you know what's interesting is, like, when people think about the podcasting, like that kind of that profession or that space, you know, I'm friends with Andy Stumpf and Mike Glover and like all the guys that kind of we bounce around each other's stuff. But what I found is some of the most fascinating podcasts are like small business owners that went through some adversity. Yeah. Or like people that defied the lockdowns and things like that.
For sure. Yeah.
And so I've had a lot of guests where like they're unheard of people, and then they have the most fascinating story.
Yeah. No, agreed.
You know?
Yeah. No, I love it.
2 more guests though, huh?
I mean, if you can think of something.
Have you had Greg Lappin on?
Mm-mm.
Greg Lappin's a good one. Greg Lappin's my business partner for our Guns and Geese program.
Oh, no shit.
And him and Joao Assis, who I got my black belt under, we all partnered together and we run a 3-day immersion course teaching the fundamentals of grappling and the fundamentals of pistol shooting.
Oh, that's cool.
And both those guys would be fascinating.
Do you do mobile, like do you take those courses?
So this is where Fieldcraft is kind of coming into play, because me and Greg Lappin, we both have our own jiu-jitsu academy. Yeah. He's a black belt as well. And then we also have a firearm range. Yeah. And so it's very easy to host it at either one of our academies. But people ask us all the time, hey, will you take this on the road?
Well, the firearms part is tough.
Firearms is tough.
Yeah.
But Glover wants to partner with us on this. And I mean, that fucking dude basically went on like what a rock band does and just went on a tour for 2 years. Yeah. Teaching out of his van.
Yeah. So he knows everywhere.
He knows everywhere. Yeah. And, you know, we gear our program towards gi jiu-jitsu and the fundamentals of pistol shooting, because we think that's the best place to introduce people to firearms and the best place to introduce people to martial arts. And I always tell people, like, our welcome aboard speech, I was like, if you suck at shooting and fighting today, you're going to suck at shooting and fighting when you go home on Monday morning.
Just a little less.
Because nobody got good at anything in a weekend.
Yeah.
Our goal of what we do here is to introduce you guys to this, show you what the lifestyle looks like, and then you got to go home and hit the ground running. And you got to continue to build yourself. Yeah. And bro, that program is doing very well.
That's awesome. How many students do you guys do at a time?
We do 30 at a time. Class 8 is coming up in July, which is already sold out in Washington. And then class 9 is in Washington as well in August.
Nice.
And then in the winter, we do it down in New Orleans, because that's where Greg Lappin lives.
Yeah. Nice. Last question. Who's the last person to humble you on the mat?
You know what's crazy?
If you say another Navy SEAL, I'm gonna fucking
no. Yeah, fucking SEALs. You know, I don't get humbled anymore when I have a hard round with a black belt or I get beat by a black belt, because I understand how the game is played, and that's what happens sometimes.
Maybe surprised.
I know, that's what I was going to say. The most humbling experiences that I get these days is, I have 208 students now. So it might be 3 months between rolling with somebody. And I got these white belts and blue belts. I had a 15-year-old gray belt the other day. He goes, "Hey coach, you want to get a round in?" I said, "Yeah, okay." And man, he grabbed double knee control on the inside of my knees and snapped me back and forth and like jumped to side control. And I was like, what the fuck? I'm in a real fight right now. Yeah. And I had to turn it up. And it made me realize, it's like, man, all of these kids and all these young men that are putting in work, every day the gap between where I'm at and where they're at is closing.
Yeah.
And when one of these kids closes that gap a lot more rapidly than I'm expecting, man,
yeah,
it forces me to kind of be like, on one hand, it hurts a little bit, but on the other hand, it's like,
you got to be proud.
Yeah. And actually, I put it on my Instagram, this 15-year-old kid. I will tell my team, I'll let you work, but I won't let you beat me. So like, if you make me tap, never think that like, oh, coach gave me that. Like, I want you to know that you earned that.
Yeah.
And I got put to sleep.
No shit.
By a 15-year-old.
Wow.
And dude, and I'm not one of those guys that's too proud to tap. Once you got me, you got me. And if you don't understand that, you're not going to have longevity in jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
But the choke came on so quick. He hit a bow and arrow, and it came on so quick. The next thing I know is I got guys shaking my legs saying, "Hey, coach, wake up, wake up." And so I pulled the security camera footage of him doing that to me, and I put it on my Instagram.
That's fucking awesome.
Because over the years, I've had a couple of those coaches where if you beat them, then the laundry list of excuses comes afterwards.
Yeah.
And it's like, bro, we're all men.
Yeah.
And in jiu-jitsu, any given day, someone can beat someone else.
Yeah.
Don't hide from that.
Yeah.
If I lose a match, one thing that I'll usually do is at the end of class, I'll congratulate the person in front of everybody.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
that's really cool. And that's one thing that you see kind of gym to gym, that unfortunately there is a bit of a disparity. Like there's some guys that can't do that.
Well, yeah, and bro, I'll tell that for any black belts out there listening, never take away somebody's victory because of your own ego.
Yeah.
It's a dangerous thing to do. It sets a bad precedent and it builds bad culture. A lot of black belts are notorious for doing this, where a lower belt starts to get an advantageous position, or maybe a lower belt like locks in an arm bar, and instead of tapping and giving them that victory, they'll coach them through the finish. Have you ever had that happen? Where it's like,
not that I'm aware of.
You're like, like you're in like the bear trap position, you're defending an armbar, and it's like, dude, I have you right now. And the guy getting armbarred will be like, oh, hey, listen, if you lean back at an angle and pull my arm this way, that's how you break this grip. And then you do that, and then they tap and say, good job, yeah, just like that.
Yeah.
It's like, motherfucker, I see what you did there.
Yeah, I had you before.
I had you, and that was your way of taking my victory away. Yeah. Don't play those games.
Yeah.
And I like winning. Like, people say check your ego at the door. I say check in on your ego. Like, don't bring so much ego to the mats where it's going to be detrimental or harmful to the training session. But we're trying to beat each other as full-grown men.
Yeah.
There's ego that's attached to that. But don't allow the ego that you bring to the mat to ever diminish other people's success or other people's victories. Yeah. Because, man, if someone catches you, it should be celebrated.
Yeah. I mean, ego is productive, and it can be counterproductive. I think
for sure.
Just like with most things, it's a balance.
It's a balance.
Yep. Anything else you want to mention before we give you your parting gifts?
If you hated the interview and you don't like me, you don't have to email me and tell me that. That's cool.
Save your time.
Save your time. If everybody was the same, the world would be pretty fucking boring, right? Yeah. But if you did like it and you do like my perspectives or some of the shit that I share or that I teach, check out my podcast. It's called The Endless Endeavor. And then if you're in Washington State, Electric North Jiu-Jitsu in Lake Stevens, Washington. And now that I've built kind of a platform and made a little bit of a name for myself, people will pop into that gym all the time just to train with me for one night. I'm not looking for a drop-in fee. I'm not trying to fucking make $20. I want to train with people that enjoy me, enjoy my energy. So if you're ever in Washington, stop by and let's get some rounds in on the mats.
Yeah, that's awesome. Have you been to Leavenworth during Christmas?
I've been to Leavenworth lots of times, never during Christmas though.
You got to go during Christmas.
I'm sure it's a shit show.
No, it's awesome.
Okay.
It's fucking crazy. It's like totally off tangent here. But yeah, it's like the level of Christmas decoration there is unparalleled.
And so for people that don't have any clue what we're talking about, Leavenworth is a German-themed town in the mountains of Washington, and it's fucking cool. There's
it looks like fucking Switzerland.
Yeah.
In on Christmas Eve there, like the whole month of December.
There's a hotel there called the Post Hotel. Have you ever been to the Post? Mm-mm. Bro, you got to make reservations like 6 months in advance or something. And I think it's like $800 a night. But it's the coolest place I've ever been. And they have a huge therapy lounge with like all these different saunas and spas and cold plunges. It's cool, man.
Oh, shit. Damn, that sounds fucking cool.
Yeah.
The Post Hotel?
Post Hotel, yep.
I'll have to check it out. One thing we like to give every guest here, I'm going to give you a copy of the book too, but this is Champion Choice Silver, and John Johnston out in California is a big supporter of the show. And
oh, wow, that's cool, man.
Hooks everybody up with the buckle and the challenge coin. So we appreciate you coming and give you something to remember being on the show by.
For sure.
And we appreciate you coming.
Thanks, man. All this will go in my studio that
awesome.
we're wrapping up right now. So.
Sweet. Good shit. Anything else you want to talk about?
No, man. Like I said at the beginning, I appreciate you having me out. I know this has been a long time in the making, but I don't like the internet podcasts either. Yeah. I like to be face to face. I think sharing an energy is important. So
crucial.
I'm glad we got to do this.
Yeah, likewise. I appreciate you coming. Very sincerely and truly. I know you're a busy guy and it's not close. So I appreciate you taking the time out of your schedule to come here, man. Really, really do.
Cool, man. I appreciate you having me.
For the listener, you know the drill. I hope you enjoyed it. If you don't, choke yourself, or Greg will. But you know, on a sincere note, I really can't thank the support from everybody, show after show, enough. It's because of you guys that we have the ability to bring such amazing guests like Greg on the show, and to continue to do what we do. So thank you for the support. Please continue to do so. Show our sponsors some love as well. And until next time, this is Mic Drop.